Okay, let's get started. So, welcome everyone for attending the first PetaWise UniView webinar. And the topic we'll be discussing today is remote surveillance with our EasyCloud and EasyView services. So, today I'm going to break this topic down into a couple smaller topics. First one is going to be that talking about how to add devices to EasyCloud and how to access them on EasyCloud and EasyView, how our two services interact with customers' networks, and the proper method of sharing devices among multiple users on EasyCloud. So we're going to start with just, I'm going to give a presentation, just go through some training, go through the things I want to present for about 40 minutes, and then after that, for the rest of the time, we can have an open Q&A session. You can ask questions anytime during the presentation. I'm going to leave you all muted, but during the presentation, you can ask questions in chat, and I will get to them after the presentation is finished. Or you can just hold on to your question, and at the end, you can ask a question. So I'm going to be using a couple diagrams throughout this presentation. These will be emailed to you immediately after the presentation, so don't worry if you miss something in the diagram. You'll be able to go over them at your own leisure once this is finished, and they'll also be available on our website to download. So let's get started then. The first topic we're going to talk about is how you add and access devices in EasyView. And the first thing I want to talk about was some of the basic structure of how the P2P system works, because if you can understand how the system works, it'll give you a better understanding of what action needs to be done when you're adding these devices for remote viewing on customers' networks. So if you see the diagram that I'm sharing here, we actually have a lot of the misconception that people have is that they think that someone has an NVR, like so, and they're just directly sharing it to their computer or their phone or tablet or whatever have you. And that's really not how the EasyCloud system works. So the way the EasyCloud system works is that NVRs are not tied to specific devices. They are actually tied, if you can see the blue arrows here, they're tied to your EasyCloud account. And in the same vein, you're not tying your EasyCloud account to your tablet or your phone or your laptop or whatever. You can access your EasyCloud account on any number of devices. So you can see here in the diagram, we have two different NVRs tied into one EasyCloud account, and you can pull up any of these two NVRs on any number of devices that you want to access it with the EasyCloud website on a PC or EasyView on a mobile phone. And of course, you can have any number of NVRs added to one account. And another thing to take note of is that EasyView and EasyCloud, even though it's a different name, they're both accessing the same service. So when you create an account on EasyView, you have that account on EasyCloud, and vice versa would apply as well. So I'm sure many of you are already familiar with the process, but I'm going to go ahead and run you through a registering and adding devices on EasyCloud. So what I have here, so I'm going to pull up, give me 1 second, I'm going to share with you, I have here an emulated Android phone. And this will be one of the first things you see after you've installed the app and you hit P2P account. It'll ask you to sign up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in my email, pwman at. And then what do I do after this? Well, the next step is we need to verify that the email actually exists. So we're going to hit that verify button. That's going to send an email out. And then what we can do is we can go over to our inbox here, and we can see we've received the EasyCloud verification code. So we'll take that code, and we're just going to put it in. Just going to put it in on our sign up here, and we're just going to create a simple password for an account. Once we've done that, we're going to hit the sign up button. And from there, you can see that we're now signed in to EasyView. So how can we tell that we're signed in? Well, the easiest thing to do is to just hit that menu, hamburger menu in the upper left, and we can see there's some sort of name here above Live View. So if we hit that, we didn't put in this name or anything, but we still sort of see this is our name. If we hit that name, we can see that it shows us that our email is actually the one we use, the PWMan email there. So what does this mean? Well, when you sign up for an account using EasyView, it's a little bit different on EasyCloud. You actually end up with a randomly generated username. But the account is just fine because the account is still tied to your email. And what we can actually do is if we just tap username here, we can go in and we can change the username to whatever we want. So let's make it something closer to our email. If we do PWMan, okay, and there's our account, PWMan. Now, when we actually go, and if we want to switch accounts, we can just hit log out down at the bottom here. We can see what we can actually do is we can sign in with either our email address or our username. So last time we signed in with our email address, so let's just try using our username now. So we have PWMan, and then we can put in our password. You can see we're signed in, and if we hit our name again, we can see it's the same email address. So when you're signing into any of our services, you can use either your email address or your username for EasyCloud or for EasyView. So now we've registered our account, and let's see how we might go about adding a device. So what I'm going to do is I have my NVR open up in the browser page, so we're going to go to that. You can see here in the menu, we have, we bring up our cameras. If we go to Setup, and then we go over to Network, and then EasyCloud, you can see a couple of things on the screen. So you can see the status is the device has not been added to the cloud website. Well, of course, because we haven't added it yet. And we can also see another couple of things on this page. This page is pretty much identical when you're using a monitor with the NVR, but I'm just using it here so I can easily copy the register code. So here we have the QR code, which can be scanned with the phone. I'll explain a little bit more about that later. But for now, what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to grab this register code. When you're adding a device, you can either use the register code or the QR code. And in most cases, we recommend to use the QR code and scan it with a phone because it's a little bit more simple than copying this long register code. So what we can do is we can go with our register code. We can go to the EasyCloud website, which is en.easycloud.uniview.com. And well, should we go to login or should we go to sign up? Well, we've already created, if you remember what I said before, both EasyCloud and EasyView use the same account system. So we already have our account. All we need to do is log in. So remember what I said before, we can use either our email address or usernames. Let's use our PWMan email address. You can see we're successfully able to log in, and it gives us a username up here, PWMan. So now when we're brought to here, we have an option to input our register code, input our device name. So let's take that register code from the page, and let's put in our device name. So let's just call this NVR1, something simple. Let's add that in. And so now we have our NVR1 added on EasyCloud. Now, what we can do is, if we want to access EasyCloud, we just hit Access. It'll come up, and this is added in remotely. It's already working. But what do we do for EasyView? Well, if you remember what I said about the accounts being linked, what we can actually do is we're already signed into our PWMan account on EasyView. So if we go to our devices list, just get rid of this one. Go to our devices list, and we drag the screen downward to refresh it. we will see our NVR1 come up, and that should come online shortly. And there it is. So now we've added it on the computer, but because we're using the same account, we can actually go and even pull up live view from this NVR. We can pull up a camera, start live view. And we can see our camera. So then we can just go back. And what I'm going to go and do is just do the opposite. When we go to devices, just going to tap that one, tap delete, cancel the binding, and then when we return back to our EasyCloud page, and if we hit the refresh button, we'll see the device is gone because the accounts are both linked and they both will instantly update each other. So that covers how we can add it on EasyCloud, but it's usually not convenient to add on EasyCloud. We want to add it in-app on EasyView. So what can we do to add a device on EasyView? Well, from the devices screen, we can see that there's a plus sign in the upper right corner there. And if we tap that plus sign, we can see that there are a number of options here. We have auto search, we have manual add, and we have scan. So scan is probably your easiest option, but I can't really show you what scan's going to do right now because I'm just emulating an Android system. So what scan's going to do is it's just going to open up the camera on the phone, and you'll be able to scan the QR code of the device to add it into EasyCloud. And it'll be just no configuration. You should put in a name once you're done, and the scan will get everything connected for you. And where can you find this QR code? Well, there are two places. First place you can find the QR code is on the actual chassis of the NVR. On the case of the NVR, there will be a sticker, usually on the underside, with a QR code that you can scan physically. But if you've already installed it and you want to just access it without pulling the unit out and scanning in the code and whatnot, it's probably easier to just bring it up on the monitor. So if you have a monitor connected, what I'm going to do is I have a monitor display here. You can bring that up. And if you hit the menu, enter in here, and same place as before, if we just go to System, then Network, then EasyCloud, you can see we have our same QR code here and our register code as well. So we can scan in that QR code with our phone, or if it doesn't work, then we can use our register code on our phone as a backup, which I'll show you how to do in a minute. So that's our scan. What other options do we have for EasyView sharing? So on EasyView sharing, we also have manual add and auto search. So if we hit manual add, it comes up, and we can see we can hit the scan to go back into the scan interface. And so we have scan interface, and we have add by at the top here. Now, the add by gives us three options. We can either add it by P2P, by IP/domain, or by EasyDDNS. Now, I'll get to those in a minute, but the first one we're going to look at is P2P. So P2P, what we can do is we can enter this is a place where if the scan is not working, we can enter our register code manually here. Or we can just put in the device name and then add the device, and we'll be finished with that. But what we can also do is we can set it up with IP domain if we want to set up our NVR to just access through a network IP address and a port, or we can use EasyDDNS if we've set up EasyDDNS with our device to just put in the domain name here. And the third option we have to add in the device is auto search. Now, auto search is very convenient, but there are some problems with it. So what we can do is we can add in, we click auto search, you see it'll scan our network automatically and try to find NVRs or cameras. So here I found our NVR. This 1071 is our NVR. So let's try and add it in. Okay. And it's just going to ask us what's the local username and password on the device. So for us, it's the default, so we can just hit add. And then if we go back, if you remember, now we can see we have our NVR 302 here. But if you remember, when we added the other one before, it was it was a blue color. Actually, let's go and add our one back with the register code. So let's go to manual add, just put in our register code, and then let's give it the name NVR1 again. Let's add. And you can see it tries to go right into the live view, but we want to go to devices. So let's go to devices. And so now you can see we have our NVR1 that we added with the register code. Its icon is blue, and this one is orange. But why are these that different when we added? Well, the basic explanation is that when you do an auto search, it adds a device using its local IP address, its private IP address. And the problem with that is that this will work perfectly fine when you're on the same network, if you're on Wi-Fi on the same network as the device, as the NVR. But as soon as you leave, as soon as you go and you have to access the device remotely, that will stop working. So you can use the auto search, but it won't work locally. So if you try to set up remote surveillance, you can't use the auto search because you end up with this orange. And I'll be explaining a little bit more about the difference between orange, blue, and all these sort of other icons here. So what I'm actually going to do, let's go back and we have our diagram. So if we take a look at our diagram here, we see we have a table here, and we can see our same blue icon, orange icon, and what these icons actually mean. And you can also determine them. You see these added by P2P ones have a glow cloud, whether it's offline or online, and the shared ones have a little triangle, whether it's offline. These ones have none. What this actually determines is basically how the device. This is what you're going to see in the devices list on EasyView app. Now, what this actually determines is how the device has been added to the app. So there are three ways it can be added to an account. Our first way is adding it by P2P, and that's going to be when we use our scan or when we add it by our register code, and that's going to be working over the internet. Doesn't really matter. Don't have to set up anything with ports, network ID, whatever. Just add it in, and it's good to go. The orange one means it's added by IP, so you either set it up with EasyDDNS, or you set it up with a forwarded address and ports and all that sort of stuff. Or this one means that someone else has actually added the device by P2P to their account, but they have shared the device to you. So this is actually not an NVR this account owns. It's an NVR that's been shared to this account. And I'll get a little bit more into sharing in a little bit. So if we just go back and we take a look at our EasyView, you can see we have our one device that we added with auto search comes up as orange, and our one that we added to register code comes up as blue because we added that one by P2P. So when we take a look at EasyCloud on the website, we can actually see that there are some different statuses we can see here. So we don't see that other one we added on the phone because that just adds locally to the phone. But on EasyCloud here, we can see we have a status of online. Now, what does online mean? Well, there are a couple statuses we can see in that menu. So we bring up here the table, so we can see online, we can see online NAT, we can see error NAT, we can see offline, and we can see inaccessible. And these statuses that appear on the EasyCloud website are actually really useful for troubleshooting. So, because basically, what they tell you is they tell you sort of the actual connectivity status of the NVR. If it says offline, that means, well, it can't get a network connection at all. If it says error NAT, then that means, well, there's something stopping it from actually connecting out to the internet, but it has some kind of network connection. So I'm not going to go through all of these right now, but I will provide you with this document here, and these give you sort of some troubleshooting steps you can take depending on the status you get there if things aren't working out properly. So the basics you need to know is that when our NVR comes out of the box, you try to connect it to EasyCloud through P2P. We're not worrying about network setup or anything. Just when you try to scan in the code, the register code, there are a couple ways that the NVR actually tries to open up some ports on the router and be able to receive communication from the internet, because you need that to be able to remotely view it. So The initial way that our NVRs will try to access the internet is they will try to connect using UPnP. So UPnP is just a protocol, universal plug and play, and that will basically try and communicate with the customer's router and try to automatically open up some ports that the NVR needs opened and get communication out to the internet. And sometimes, usually this works. Usually this will work perfectly. There'll be no problems, and you'll see the status of online on EasyCloud. But sometimes this process will fail. Might be due to the customer's router or some kind of configuration setting, or UPnP being disabled, or whatever it'll be. And in that case, the NVR is a fallback mechanism where it'll contact the stun server. You can think of it like a sort of relay. It sort of uses the stun server as a relay to connect between the NVR and the EasyCloud servers. Now, if that works, if the UPnP fails but the stun server works, we'll be seeing status as online NAT. And sometimes the stun server will fail as well. And when that happens, we have both UPnP failing and we have both the stun server failing, we will get our status of error NAT. And now with error NAT, we're going to need to go in and do some manual port forwarding on the NVR. And I'm going to be explaining that in a little bit. But for now, we have another status. We can have the status of offline. And offline means that somewhere along the line, there's no actual network connection. So it might be that the NVR is unplugged. It might be the customer's router isn't working properly, and so it doesn't have an internet connection. But you just want to verify each step in the network to make sure that the NVR has internet access before trying anything else with offline. And you'll sometimes see inaccessible with Mac systems. We're not going to go over that right now. So what do we do if we encounter a situation where we're seeing this error NAT come up? Well, that means we need to set up manual port forwarding. And manual port forwarding it's a pretty straightforward process on our NVRs. So what we need to do on our NVR side is, so the first thing we need to do is we need to check on our NVRs some of the networking information. So I'm going to pull up our monitor here. You can see we're back here. If we go into the menu, we can go to System, then Network. And you see we have two things that we need to look at. Well, three things really that we need to look at when determining whether we're going to need to do port forwarding or not. So, or what we need when we're doing port forwarding, rather. So we have our IPv4 address, which is going to be our local IP address. We need to note that down. Then we need to look at our port page and our port mapping page. So on our port page, we just need to note down each of these three ports. If you only see HTTP, RTSP, HTTPS, we don't need to ever worry about HTTPS unless we actually want to use HTTPS. So we just need to know what's going to be our HTTP port, what's going to be our RTSP port. That's going to be 80 and 554. And then we we're going to note those down on port as our internal ports. So then we're going to go to port mapping. And on port mapping, you'll see by default it's going to be set to UPnP, but we don't want to use UPnP. We want to use manual. So we're going to switch that over to manual. And now under manual, see, we've gotten some different ports here. So these are different than the ones on port. So we're going to note these ones down. Again, remember, we can skip HTTPS as our external ports. So if we go back to, so if we apply this, we go back to port, and we have our HTTP 80554, and then our external ports are going to be 50535 and 51704. So we note those down. And then, once we have that information, we're going to need to interface with the customer's router. So, if we go and we take a look, on the customer's router, we're going to be seeing something similar to this. It's going to ask us what our internal port is, what our external port is, what protocol we're using, what IP address. And the easy part about all this is that we already have all this information. Well, we got the external port we needed from our port mapping page. So here, on this time, it said it's 580, so we put 580 there, 55554 there. We want to make sure to set our mapping mode to manual on the NVR side. Our internal ports we got from our port page, and we just match them up, so the HTTP port has to match the HTTP port here with internal, external. And then we're going to set our protocol to both or TCP/UDP. It depends on the router. And our IP address is going to be the one that we pulled up from that network basics screen. Now, once we've done that, we're already done with the port forwarding. As long as we forwarded HTTP and RTSP and we forward it to the right IP address, we're already finished. The main principle to keep in mind when port forwarding is just that what's set up on the router has to match what's set up on the NVR. You can change the numbers to be whatever you want, or you can just use what it gives you. But the point is that external has to match what's on port mapping. Internal has to match what's on port. Now, sometimes on older NVRs, you might see a few more ports than HTTP, RTSP, HTTPS. So here, if we take a look at these, you're going to see that there is HTTP, RTSP, Media, SDK, HTTPS. And it works exactly the same as the new models of NVRs. It works exactly the same. You're going to have port mapping matching your external, port matching your internal, send it to the NVR's IP address, use both or TCP, UDP. The only difference is the number of ports you need to forward. So in the case we have an old NVR, it's recommended that you forward all the ports. So in this case we have 5. We're going to forward all 5 of them. So here we can see we have our, our external port mapping numbers here and our internal port numbers. And we're going to go, and you see, we just match them up, 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 and same thing with the IP address. So the main principle to keep in mind is just that everything needs to be matching. External port mapping, internal port. Now, that should, once you set that up, that should get you going for a status of online on EasyCloud and get you around that problem of stun server not working and UPnP not working. So that covers adding a device to someone's account. But one important thing I want to talk about was what to do if multiple people have their own EasyCloud accounts, but they both want to view the same NVR, because you can only add an NVR to a single EasyCloud account. If you try to add to another account, you'll get an error message saying that the device has already been registered. But of course, we have maybe a business where a number of people need to view the device. So what can we do to get it to the multiple people? Well, one solution that I find that a number of people use is they end up just making one account and giving out the username and password to that to everyone in the business. And that is, I hope I can explain to you why that's a terrible idea. Because if you're in a situation where it's a smaller family doing this, that's just fine. But in a business environment, this should not be done. So let's say I am a member of a company and I've been given access to our account here, the PWMan. So I've been given our email address, their PWMan, and I have been given our password. So I log in on my computer. I can do it from home if I want. And I can click Access, and that will bring up. Oh, I need to go and change manual port forwarding back. Okay, so let me go and do that. So you can watch along. So remember, the reason why that's not working is because we don't actually have these ports open. So I'm going to go ahead and change that back to UPnP. Apply that. Exit out. And go back to our EasyCloud page. Refresh it a couple times. Let's try and access that again. You can see now we're able to access that. We're able to get in with just the username and password. And, well, what can we do here? Well, with that username and password, what we can do is we can do quite a few things that would be very detrimental to the function of the NVR. So if we want to, we could go to Network, we can go to EasyCloud, and we could delete the device from EasyCloud so no one can view it remotely. Or we could go and mess with the recordings, delete them, play with them, change them around, whatever we're going to be doing. So if you give the password to someone, you're basically giving them, in most cases, full control of the NVR. And that's really not something that's secure. You can't control what 50 people are going to be doing with your NVR. Another point to note with this same topic is if you give out a username and password to an employee who then ends up leaving the company, there's no way for you to sort of revoke access to that employee. Your only thing you can do is change the password on the account, and that means that everyone who's using it is going to have to be given this new account. That's the only way you're going to get removed, and if you have to do that every single time someone is removed, someone leaves the company, you're just going to have too big of a headache. So there has to be a better solution to this, and there is, and it's built right into EasyCloud. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to register a new account on our EasyCloud as if to simulate another employee joining in. So let's pull up that. Let's go in here and let's sign out of our PWMan account. And let's create one with PWEMP1. And, oh, no, sorry, we need to go sign up here. So we go sign up. So let's hit verify again. Let's go back to our inbox. We got our verification code. Take that, plug it in, give it a password, sign up. Verification code. Okay, let's try and send that verification code again. PWM1. Ah, there's my bad. I put in the wrong email address here. It's PWM1. So let's actually go back, sign up, WM1. So let's verify. So that should send the verification code. And there we go. So here's our verification code. And put that in, put in the password. And now we have our second account. So what we're then going to do is we're going to change that username to PWMP1. Okay. And we're going to sign out of this account. We're just going to exit out here. We're going to sign back into our original account, the PWMan. And now, if we go over to our devices on PWMan, we have our NVR1. And what we can actually do, instead of giving out the password, is if we tap our NVR1, we'll bring up a menu here. And we can hit the share in the bottom of the menu. This will bring up a new menu. And what we can do is we have a couple options here. We can put in share to, and it says username/email, because, of course, you can use the username or the email. So what we're going to do is we want to share it to the new account that we created. So let's put in our username of our new account, which was PWEMP1. We have our valid period, which is going to be the time that the share expires. So we're going to set that to expire in 2020. Hit OK. And we're not going to worry about sharing permission right now, but we're going to hit share. So we hit share, and we don't see anything here, but if we go and we sign out of our account, and we log into our employee account, so we log into our employee account, and on our employee account, we're going to have, under devices, you see, we have our NVR1. And we can see, if you remember our chart from before, this green icon with the triangle means that if we don't actually own the device, that's been shared to us. But, of course, we can still go, if we want, we can go and load up and pull up a camera. And this way, we didn't have to give out the password for our main account, but we still gave out the ability to view the NVR. So, what happens now if PWEMP1 leaves the company or needs to have his privileges revoked for whatever reason? Well, we can go back to our main account. We go back to our manager account, and we can just sign in. And if we actually go if we actually sign into our manager account here, okay, if we go to our manager account here, and we go, when we tap on our username again, so PWMan, we actually see here we have my devices, my sharing records, my QR codes. If we hit my sharing records, we can see now we shared this to this email address for this valid period. But even though it says it's to this valid period, if we have full control over our own NVR, and so we can cancel our sharing at any time. So if we just hit cancel sharing here, that share has now been removed. So if we go try to go back onto our employee's account, so if we just log out here, we go PWEMP1, and we put in our password, log in again. Then we go to devices, it's gone. We don't have the camera anymore. Where the share has been removed, and so we don't have access to it. Now, when we're sharing like that, we're not giving out our password, which is good, but we're still not sort of getting rid of any sort of administrator permissions. So how do we do that? Well, the main process with that is that we need to set up a system of sharing with certain permissions. So here I have some diagrams. So this diagram is pretty straightforward, and this is what we've really done already. So we have our NVR1, we have our NVR. On our NVR, what we need to know is that there is an admin account that's on the NVR by default. And when we add the device to EasyCloud, we get access to that admin account. And that's really the status that our NVR is in right now. Our manager has access to the admin account on NVR1, our manager's EasyCloud account. You see the person here is the EasyCloud account. Now, what's our next step then if we want to share it out with a share permission? Well, the next step is to create a new account. But these keys signify accounts that are local to the NVR. So what do I mean by that? Well, that means we have to actually set up what people are able to do on the NVR before we do anything on EasyCloud. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up our monitor again here. So we see on our monitor here, if I just go into the menu, we have an option here, System, and then User. Now, here we have our default user, which is just used by the system, and we have our admin account, which we already know about. So if we go and we add a new user down at the bottom here, we're going to make this one, and we're going to call it Viewer. And we're going to have it just as a guest. We're going to give it a password, and this password should be a secure password as well. This is to log in locally. And we see we have a couple of permissions here. So configure is to change the settings on the NVR. We don't want them to be able to do that. Upgrade is to upgrade the firmware. We also don't want them to do that. View and export logs is to view the logs of the NVR. We don't want them to do that. And we don't want them to restart or shut down the NVR either. But we go in here, we have permissions for the camera, so we want them to be able to live view on all the cameras, so we're going to leave this as it was. But PTZ control, we don't want them to change the PTZ of the camera, so we're going to uncheck that. And we're going to hit OK. So now we've created our new viewer user on the NVR, and we've set them to be able to view all the cameras, but not change any settings and not control PTZ. So that's our next step there. So now, what we want to do, we've created our viewer account on the NVR, and we still have our admin account shared in. It's all the same there. But our next step is to have our accounts to share it to. So we already have our EMP1, and let's go and create another EMP2. So we're going to create our EMP2. And if we go back to our Android and we sign out of this account and we sign up again, EMP2, and we hit verify. We go back to our inbox. We have our new verification code. And set up the account. OK. So now we've created our PW EMP2 account. So let's just change that username. So we have our PW EMP2 username. And since we need to do all this sort of sharing and adding from the person who owns the NVR, we're going to go back to our PWMan account. So PWMan, we're going to log in. And now if we go to devices, you remember, if we tap our NVR, we have the option to share. So we need to share that to two different people. And we're going to share it. We're going to give, the first person we're going to give it to, we're going to give it to PWEMP1. And we're actually going to share it to him with admin permission. We might need him to change some settings or upgrade the firmware or whatnot. So we're going to just do a normal share with admin permission. OK. And we're going to do another share. We're going to hit it again, hit share. And this time, we're going to share it to PWEMP2. But this time, we're going to give him only the viewer permission. So you see, we changed the sharing permission to viewer. That means that now, those settings that we set up on the NVR, those sort of not control PTZ, not do configuration, those are now going to be applied to viewer. So we hit share. So now we don't see anything here, but if we go back and we go in and we go to our account, tap our name there, we go to our sharing records, we can see a history of, oh, we shared it to him. We shared it to him. So we can see this is who we've shared it to. So now, if I go back, if you remember our first situation where I logged in on EasyCloud, if I go back to EasyCloud, close this up, and we exit on EasyCloud, and this time we're going to be, remember, we didn't give out our PWMan account. That's our controller. That's our admin account. So what we're going to do is we're going to just log in with our PWEMP2, and we're going to log in to that account, and if you remember, we've been shared this device. So now, if you see, this comes up under shared cloud device instead of my cloud devices, and we can hit access still, same way as before, get into the device, and we can still play the cameras, no problem. This isn't a PTZ, but if it was, we couldn't be able to move it around because we didn't get the permission. And if we go and try to do something, like let's say we want to, before we can do anything, it's the admin account, but on this one, if we want to go and we want to turn off motion, okay. But if we hit save, the user does not have permission because we said this account is not allowed to configure. So using these accounts and the sharing system of EasyCloud, you're able to sort of finally control what each user has permission to do with the NVR. And this way is much more controllable, much more secure, and much less prone to error than the method of just sharing out any sort of usernames. But it is a little bit complex. Now, you can go in and, you know, design a sort of flow chart all like this and set up whatever you want, but I think it can be broken down into really 5 sharing steps. So what we already just went through those sharing steps. So what you want to do, 5 steps if you need to set up sharing. Your very first step is to confirm local NVR functionality. So you want to make sure that the NVR is not having any problems on its own. You can see all the cameras coming up on the monitor. You can have the NVR is able to connect to the internet. Everything's good on the NVR side. The next step is for everyone who is going to be accessing NVR to create their own EasyCloud account. So in this case, we had our 2 employees and we had our manager, and they each need to create an account. We had our manager create the account, and we had our employees each create our account. And ideally, when you're doing this should be done with a business email and password, because that way, if, for example, if you set up someone and they add the NVR and then they leave, well, you're going to need to get the NVR removed, because if you lose access to the controller account, there's not really much you can do. So next step after everyone's created their account is determine who's going to be the manager of the NVR. And in this case, our manager was that PWMan account. And the manager is going to be, who should you select as the manager? Should be someone who might need to adjust settings on the NVR, might need to share it to more employees. Whoever you decide in the end to be the manager of the NVR, they're going to be the one scanning the register code in, or scanning the QR code, or adding the register code and actually adding the device so they get that blue icon on their account. The next step is for them to go log into the NVR through a monitor or through the web interface and to actually create those local accounts. Remember, we went in and created that viewer account. When we created that viewer account, we decided what permissions they're going to get. So we decide what permissions is each person going to get, create one account for each person. So we're going to create an employee 1 account, an employee 2 account, and we're going to say what can they do, what can they not do. And then the final step, once we set all that up, all we need to do is go in again, go to our devices list, hit share on our NVR, and give each person their own share with the level of permission that we set up. So that covers my section of the presentation. So we're going to go into the Q&A session. Thank you for attending the first PetaWise UniView webinar. Any recordings of this webinar will be uploaded to our website when they're available. And you will also be able to find information and registration for any of our upcoming webinars on that same site. So if you actually just go, I'll pull that up right here. All you're going to be wanting to do is go into PetaWise.com. And from PetaWise.com, you want to go to Training. And under Training, you'll see we have Remote Surveillance Cloud View, and you'll be able to download files, those sort of charts and images that I've been using this whole time, and you'll be able to watch the recording there. And any information about new webinars will be posted here as well. So you'll be emailed the package of You'll be able to package with the images as well, but thank you for attending and have a great day.